Why does it feel like no matter how hard you work, building wealth as a middle-class family is getting harder every year? The truth is, middle-class wealth isn't just shrinking by accident. It's being quietly eroded by rising living costs, stagnating wages, debt traps, and policies that favor the wealthy. In this video, we'll uncover the real forces behind the disappearing middle-class fortune and show how everyday choices and systemic factors play a role in this alarming trend. Understanding this is the first step to protecting your financial future. Today, we will talk about the real reason middle-class wealth is disappearing. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. Understanding the middle-class squeeze. The middle class has long been considered the backbone of the economy, representing stability, consumption power, and societal growth. Yet over the past few decades, middle-class wealth has been steadily eroding, and the reasons are deeper than most people realize. A combination of stagnant wages, rising living costs, and economic inequality has squeezed disposable income, leaving households struggling to maintain their previous standard of living. Many middle-class families are forced to stretch paychecks to cover housing, healthcare, education, and basic expenses, leaving little room for savings or investments. Unlike the wealthy, who benefit from capital gains, dividends, and tax advantages, the middle class relies mostly on earned income, which has not kept pace with inflation or productivity gains. Additionally, mounting debt, particularly student loans, credit cards, and mortgages, diverts resources away from wealth building. The result is a growing gap between aspirations and reality, making it increasingly difficult for the middle class to accumulate assets, pass on wealth, or achieve long-term financial security. Understanding these dynamics is the first step in identifying why middle-class wealth is disappearing and what strategies might help reverse the trend. 2. Wage stagnation versus rising costs. One of the primary reasons for the decline of middle-class wealth is wage stagnation. For decades, inflation-adjusted wages for middle-income earners have barely increased, while the cost of living, including housing, healthcare, education, and childcare, has skyrocketed. Even as productivity has grown and businesses generate higher profits, the average worker's paycheck has remained relatively flat. This imbalance means that even hard-working individuals cannot accumulate savings at the same rate as previous generations. Rising costs force many families to rely on credit to bridge the gap, creating a cycle of debt that consumes any potential wealth. This disparity also affects retirement planning, as contributions to savings accounts, pensions, and 401k plans are often reduced to meet day-to-day expenses. With stagnant wages, middle-class households face financial vulnerability, making them more susceptible to economic shocks like recessions or interest rate hikes. Understanding how wage stagnation interacts with rising costs is critical to comprehending why the middle class is losing wealth despite being employed full-time. 3. The housing burden. Housing has become one of the largest contributors to the erosion of middle-class wealth. In many urban areas, property prices have skyrocketed, making homeownership increasingly unattainable for middle-income earners. Renting, while more accessible, consumes a significant portion of income, leaving less available for savings and investments. Those who manage to buy homes often take on large mortgages, which can limit financial flexibility and increase vulnerability to interest rate hikes or economic downturns. Additionally, property taxes, maintenance costs, and utilities further strain budgets. Homeownership has traditionally been a key vehicle for building generational wealth, but rising housing costs and stagnant incomes make it difficult for middle-class families to benefit from property appreciation. The growing gap between wages and housing costs not only reduces disposable income, but also increases dependence on credit, undermining financial stability. Understanding the housing burden is crucial, as it highlights a systemic barrier to wealth accumulation for the middle class. 4. The rising cost of education. Education, once seen as a ladder to upward mobility, has become another financial challenge eroding middle-class wealth. Tuition fees at colleges and universities have increased dramatically, far outpacing wage growth. Many families take on substantial student loans to fund their children's education, sometimes at the expense of other financial priorities such as retirement savings or emergency funds. The pressure to finance education often forces middle-class households to delay major purchases, reduce savings contributions, or work multiple jobs. Student loan debt has become a defining burden for this demographic, with many graduates entering adulthood with limited financial flexibility. The combination of rising educational costs, stagnant wages, and debt repayment creates a compounding effect that makes wealth accumulation slower and more difficult. Understanding how education costs contribute to financial strain reveals yet another mechanism behind the shrinking middle class. 5. Healthcare expenses and financial vulnerability. Healthcare costs are another major factor draining middle-class wealth. Rising premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses for medical care increasingly consume household budgets. Unexpected medical emergencies can be financially devastating, forcing families to use credit or deplete savings. Unlike the wealthy, who may have access to better insurance and financial buffers, middle-class households often face difficult choices between necessary healthcare and other expenses. Chronic illnesses or long-term medical care can permanently alter financial trajectories, eroding wealth over time. Furthermore, healthcare costs continue to rise faster than inflation and wages, creating a persistent financial burden. Middle-class families are disproportionately affected because they earn too much to qualify for government assistance, but not enough to absorb increasing costs comfortably. Recognizing the impact of healthcare expenses is key to understanding the vulnerabilities of middle-class wealth. 6. Tax policies and wealth disparities. Tax policies have also contributed to the decline of middle-class wealth. While higher-income earners and corporations benefit from tax breaks, deductions, and capital gains advantages, middle-income families rely primarily on earned income, which is taxed more heavily relative to their overall financial growth. Deductions for mortgage interest or educational expenses often provide limited relief, while corporate profits and investment income enjoy preferential treatment. This systemic imbalance allows the wealthy to accumulate assets more rapidly, while middle-class households face higher effective tax burdens that reduce their ability to save and invest. Over time, this policy structure exacerbates economic inequality and makes wealth building for the middle class increasingly difficult. Understanding the role of taxation sheds light on structural factors beyond individual financial behavior that contribute to disappearing middle-class wealth. 7. Debt and consumer spending patterns. Debt accumulation is another significant factor undermining middle-class financial stability. Credit cards, auto loans, and high-interest personal loans create a cycle of repayments that leave little room for saving or investment. Many middle-class households rely on debt to maintain lifestyles that exceed income growth, leading to a slow erosion of net wealth. Consumer spending patterns, influenced by societal pressures and easy access to credit, often prioritize short-term consumption over long-term wealth creation. Over-leveraging limits the ability to invest in appreciating assets, contributing to the widening wealth gap. Without strategic management of debt and disciplined spending habits, middle-class households struggle to grow financial reserves, making them more vulnerable to economic shocks. Recognizing the role of debt and spending behavior is essential to understanding the systematic challenges middle-class families face. 8. Economic shifts and globalization. Global economic shifts, including automation, outsourcing, and globalization, have disproportionately affected the middle class. Many stable, well-paying manufacturing and office jobs have been replaced by lower-paying service roles or relocated overseas. Automation eliminates certain positions entirely, reducing income opportunities for traditional middle-class workers. Globalization increases competition for jobs and suppresses wage growth while enabling corporations to maximize profits. As a result, even employed middle-class households often face stagnant wages, reduced job security, and limited upward mobility. These economic transformations contribute to a structural decline in middle-class wealth, highlighting that individual effort alone is no longer sufficient to ensure financial stability. 9. Lack of financial literacy and wealth-building knowledge. Another factor contributing to disappearing middle-class wealth is the lack of financial literacy. Many families are not taught effective strategies for saving, investing, or managing debt from an early age. Without knowledge of compounding, asset allocation, or retirement planning, households struggle to grow wealth over time. Misguided investment decisions, reliance on high-interest debt, or insufficient emergency savings exacerbate financial instability. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up. Leave a comment and click the button to subscribe.